Chapter 13, The Red Queen. We're getting down to the wire. Alright, another new background. We're starting off hot. Let's go. The last few weeks, if anything, had been a lesson in things university did not adequately prepare one for. Case in point, my archaeology degree had not prepared me for sneaking into a warehouse with numerous armed guards. That's shocking. All hoping to free people held captive inside. Maybe it's covered in postgrad when they teach you to break into booby-trapped tombs. Either way, sneaking into guarded places was nowhere near as easy as fiction made it seem. For one thing, how was I supposed to dodge the guards and make it all the way inside? Even as an Esper, that wasn't easy, and there was currently a building and another alley between me and where I needed to be. I let out a soft exhale, expanding my sphere a few more meters. It had to be some kind of creepy abandoned warehouse. Of course. It actually reminds me a bit of the warehouse that was in Changeling. Just a little bit, but from a different angle. Was it a warehouse, or was it a abandoned church, or... You know the one that was always at the end of every route. I can't remember what that building was now. One silver lining was that we were at least in an area of densely packed buildings that offered cover and hiding places. That was the only reason I'd been able to get this close without being seen. The building I was currently hiding in was empty, but the alley on the other side had a person in it. And there were two more in another alley at a right angle to that. There were at least two on the small portion of roof overlapping my sphere and one across the street. I was certain there were more, but I couldn't see further than that with my current range. Several were armed, and I also didn't know what was going on inside the warehouse. Jack and CAISSA were there, according to the bishop back at the court, but I had to be careful about expanding my sphere too far at this proximity. Apparently they had a psi detector inside, and I'd set it off if I wasn't careful. The team holding CAISSA and Jack wasn't Esper heavy, but there were a couple of them, and I wasn't sure about their ranks or skills. For now, what I needed to work on was getting inside undetected. Or as close as possible, anyway. It looked like teleporting was my only option, even if I wanted to avoid it. I'd been watching the guard in the alley for a while. It seemed like every 10 minutes or so, they disappear around to the back for about 5 minutes, then return. That meant I had a 5-minute window to get into the alley and relocate without being seen. I could sense a door that led into the warehouse. With luck, I could slip in there, but I'd have to be careful. Shrink my sphere and try to keep awareness to only my immediate area to avoid detection. That was the best I could come up with. The guard moved towards the front of the building, disappearing around the corner, and I took that opportunity. Stumbling out of the flash with a gasp, I rested against the wall for a brief moment to get my bearings. All these alleys look the same. Thankfully, I was getting the hang of that teleportation technique. It was the same one I'd mimicked from Ari weeks ago. Why you gotta bring up the X? My heart. No! I left him behind, I thought. I was just glad I somehow remembered how to do it. But there was a limitation I hadn't at first realized when I was just elated I could still mimic him. That flash of light wasn't the sneakiest thing. Oh, that's not just for effect, eh? I'd gotten this far because no one had been near enough to see it, but the moment I heard the footsteps coming my way, I knew I was in trouble. And I had nowhere to retreat because they were coming at me from both sides. If I ran away now, we'd lose the chance to get everyone out. So I braced myself for what was coming next. 3 people spilled into the alley, weapons drawn and aimed at me. Aren't you... with Endgame, though? Don't move. Well, I didn't intend to. Sorry, everyone. Looks like I got caught a little earlier than intended. Before they could do anything else, I rapidly expanded my sphere to get a glimpse inside the building. And a glimpse it was. Seconds later, the first of them reached me. He grabbed my shoulder and threw me to the ground. An unnecessary show of force, since I'd made no indication I'd fight back. You try anything, you'll be dead before you get far. Thanks for the warning. He held me down, shoving my face next to a puddle of something that smelled suspicious enough I didn't want to touch it. I lay perfectly still. Another guard barked at someone to bring a psi inhibitor for an intruder. Haha, joke's on you. And seconds before my net connection went down, I tried to send a message to Veli. I had no idea if it made it. The guard slapped a psi inhibitor on my wrist and hauled me back to my feet before dragging me inside. I was having second thoughts about this plan, but it was too late for that now. I wasn't expecting good news, but this is worse than I thought.
We're lucky we found them at all, and that they're both still alive.
A lot of good it does for them to be alive if we can't get them out of there. And from what we could see, Donovan has a hell of a lot of men guarding them.
I freaking knew it was Donovan. We were fortunate there were 2 strong bishops associated with the court. Donovan had a lot of psi dampeners up, creating an artificial cage to keep us out. They struggled to get through it, but necessity was the mother of invention. Or, in this case, desperation was the mother of finding creative ways to use my abilities. I learned I could enhance them by winding my psi into theirs, and Veli learned the technique from me. The 4 of us combined were able to punch through the reverse cage. The bishops got a decent look at the area and figured out their general location from that. Numbers aside, there are also at least 2 Espers with them.
There could be more, too.
They're most likely to be rooks or infantry. That shouldn't be a problem for us.
No rook is going to put up a reverse cage it takes 4 people to punch through. And I'm doubtful they could do it with just psi dampeners.
So at least 1 bishop, then.
Most likely. And a dozen other guards, at least.
That seems like overkill for just CAISSA, Jack, and Carrie. Now Carrie's with them too? What happened to June? Did June die?
We don't know it's just them. We know it's at least the 3 of them. But CAISSA's the main prize. If they're trading them to Noir like we suspect, he's the one they want. The rest are a bonus.
Are we sure that's what's going on?
Based on what I saw at the mansion and what our bishop saw, that's our best guess.
Donovan's always been a snake, but I wasn't expecting this from him. I didn't think he had the guts to pull off something this massive.
I highly doubt he would have if there wasn't someone like Noir behind him.
Donovan, one of the board members from Erythros Industries, a senator, and an ally of Crimson, before he betrayed them. Why is he doing this now?
Because the rumor was that Karis was getting ready to announce CAISSA as the official heir. To Erythros, to Crimson. He might be Karis' son, but with the tension between them, I think everyone half expected Karis to name someone else as the next family head. But no, it was going to be CAISSA. And with you at his side, no less. They probably thought if they didn't do it now, they'd never take CAISSA down. Not with the way Karis has been emphasizing your progress with training lately.
But you're a queen rank too, and you've been at CAISSA's side this whole time.
Let's not pretend you aren't different, Morgan. It's well known I'm just an infantry who got lucky. That's how most of them see me. I'll never be the same as a natural queen rank.
You worked hard, Veli. It wasn't just luck.
Worked hard and got lucky it paid off, Rowan. You and I both know it.
It's always like that with hard work, but I understand what you mean. In the end, it doesn't even matter if there's a real difference in our skill or potential.
It's the perception that matters.
So Donovan made a deal with Noir because he thought this might be his last chance?
With Veli in exile here in Chestershire, it was the perfect opportunity.
Noir's been salivating at the chance to get their hands on CAISSA for ages. Their experiments are notorious in Delphine. It also lets him take down the court, an eyesore many have wanted to be rid of for a while now. Donovan knew he'd never convince us to work for him, so getting rid of us was the better choice. That aside, We have to get CAISSA and the others before they're turned over to Noir. Otherwise, we won't get them back.
Storming the warehouse from the outside is likely to get them killed, you know.
I doubt Donovan can afford to kill CAISSA.
And the others?
They're expecting us anyway, Celeste. You think they have that many guards and psi detectors everywhere because they aren't expecting a bunch of desperate Espers to show up trying to save their king? It's obvious all this chaos here is at least in part to distract us long enough for the trade to happen.
What about fighting our way out from the inside of the warehouse? It's not like we can't get in.
With their psi detectors, they probably have a bit of warning. Possibly enough to take us out before we can do anything.
That's why I was thinking about getting myself captured. With a strong enough reverse cage, it should keep their bishop from knowing I'm coming.
They'll slap a psi inhibitor on you so fast you won't know what happened, Morgan. And then you'll be nothing but a useless girl from New Albion who can't do a damn thing.
Ah, those don't work on me, so...
What?
Psi inhibitors don't work on me, Veli. Coming in clutch! I could see the incredulous looks I was getting and just sighed. I should have expected it. I noticed when I was being forced to wear it at the mansion, but you can imagine I didn't have much motivation to tell anyone. But I assure you, the inhibitors don't work.
Well, she is a fairy. It could be possible.
You really are a monster, aren't you?
If that's true, you should just be even more grateful I'm on your side.
I won't argue with that.
Heyo. Yeah, when she didn't even make an attempt to fight them, I'm like, was your plan to get captured and fight your way out? Because that makes sense. Even if being captured had been the plan, being half dragged into the warehouse was not a pleasant experience. My heart was in my throat, and though I knew the psi inhibitor wasn't preventing me from getting out if I needed to, though I knew the others were waiting for my signal to attack the guards outside, it was terrifying. I just wished I'd been caught a little later, so I could have given everyone else some additional information about what to expect before my net access had been suppressed again. And now we're in here. Hello. The man behind me gave me a rough shove through a wide door and into an open area with multiple other people standing around. My gaze immediately landed on CAISSA and the others, huddled together in a small group on the ground. All had their hands bound behind their backs with electromagnetic cuffs, from what I could see. Carrie looked okay. Jack looked like complete hell. June, to my surprise, was there too. Okay, he's still alive. One arm was badly injured, but he looked alright otherwise. His presence told me there had been gaps in what our bishops had seen. That made me nervous. Even so, my greatest relief was seeing that CAISSA was okay. Disheveled, but unharmed. The look on his face when our eyes met was heartbreaking. Horrified, shocked. I wished I could tell him it was going to be okay. And I wished I could believe that myself.
Morgan!
He tried to get to his feet as the others looked my way. Jack, who was flopped on his side, lifted his head. I was glad he was conscious. Why do you look familiar? Kind of remind me of the blonde guy from, Ari's route. I can't remember his name. Did he even have a name? I don't know. That feeling evaporated when the man next to CAISSA knocked him back to the ground.
Shut the hell up and don't move!
I gritted my teeth as they pushed me further into the room. In response to the surge of anger, my sigh swelled. I stamped it down, trying to calm myself. I could not risk setting off their psi detectors yet. If they knew I could still use psi, I'd lose any advantage I had. Now it was just about holding on until the others arrived.
So this was the intruder.
The struggle for control increased when Donovan walked out of the shadows like a cliché villain. Of course. Stay calm, Morgan. You can do this.
I can't say I expected you to have the guts to come here on your own. Did you really think you'd be able to do anything? Or were you intending to turn yourself over to us?
I wasn't exactly intending to turn myself over.
Some kind of desperate rescue attempt.
He laughed at that.
A novice queen like yourself staging a rescue attempt on her own.
The smile hardened as he came towards me.
You are alone, aren't you?
Do you think I'd have been captured if I wasn't?
I was told someone broke through our reverse cage earlier. You?
I was silent, but only because I didn't trust my ability to lie convincingly. Donovan turned away, a cold smile on his lips. His eyes darted towards CAISSA before he looked over his shoulder at me.
I would imagine the rest of your people are a little busy with the uproar in Chestershire. I was hoping to pick you up there later, but I'm glad you saved us the trouble.
That eager to turn me over to Noir. Out of the corner of my eye, I watched Jack manage to get himself upright, only to be kicked back to a prone position by the guard. Poor Jack. Bastards. Donovan laughed at that, drawing my eyes back to him. He motioned for the man behind me to move me closer. I staggered forward when he gave me a sudden shove. The barrel of his gun digging into my spine, I continued forward, trying to decide when I should act. I had been captured before Veli had said the others were in place, but I didn't know how long to wait.
Information certainly travels fast, doesn't it? But I can't say I want to hand you over to Noir at all. The first recorded F-class queen rank. I'm certain they'd love to test your output. See how long it takes before you burn out or break.
I came to a stop right in front of Donovan, further from the others than I wanted.
But it would be such a waste to have you become a lab rat like the others.
Do you think I'd willingly work with you if you tried to make me?
Oh, I'm confident we can find ways to gain your cooperation.
He ran a finger down my cheek, that disgusting smile spreading over his face again. Don't touch me! Donovan gripped my jaw tightly, still wearing that cold smile.
The others may enjoy your defiance, but you'll find I don't.
I don't care what you like or not. He released me, and I knew what was coming. I jerked my head back, avoiding the full brunt of it, but he still caught me along the jaw. My head snapped to the side, but not for long. He grabbed my face and forced me to look at him again. I was biting the inside of my cheek hard, not in pain, but to keep my sigh under control. Just a few minutes longer, just to give everyone else a bit more time. What about CAISSA? You turn him over despite everything? Kings are more useful than... Donovan scoffed, casting another scornful look CAISSA's way.
Him? He's barely adept enough to be more useful than a standard hacker. Kings are useful when they're skilled. When they're not, they can only stand around and be protected. His older brother was as soft as he is. But when he was alive, at least he was useful. We could stand toe-to-toe with Endgame's king. He helped us funnel energy resources into Delphine without detection. He got our men in and out of the Triad with ease when needed. He helped our businesses in more ways than you can imagine. And when Endgame's king hit us, Deimos always hit back just as hard. And we were certain he would locate Avalon as well. This trash.
He gestured towards CAISSA with a dismissive flick of his hand.
He can't. Or he won't. and Karis always protected him. And his useless endeavors to improve the slums for the rats that live there. Do you know how much time and resources he's wasted on the court? I'll gladly give him up to Noir. They've been eager to get their hands on a king. I doubt his fate will be any different from the last one they scrounged up, but promising them a new plaything earned their help, so...
He shrugged as if he wasn't talking about lives. You aren't worried what they'll do with his powers? The planetary AI...
No matter how much Nyx tortured that brother of his, he couldn't find that stupid thing. And you think CAISSA will do it?
Nyx? Nyx is a mysterious group that is known to few people outside of some law enforcement, Endgame, and a few other factions. Though there is little proof to back it up, it's generally understood that they have ties with Delphine's government. They frequently work in the shadows, covering their tracks so that they can't be connected to whatever incidents they're involved in. Nyx may have been involved in the death of Endgame's previous queen, and may also have been involved in the abduction and death of Deimos Fianchetto, the eldest son to Karis Fianchetto and original heir to the Crimson crime family. Interesting. I have a crack theory in the works, but I will talk about it at a later date. I will talk about it another time, because right now we got, important things are happening. But, yeah, look forward to my theory at some point.
You bastard! Perhaps. But under the circumstances, I'm not sure why I'm expected to be bothered by that. You're tied up, and I'm poised to take over your father's empire.
He paused, head tilting to the side as he listened to some message he was receiving through the net.
Our contacts with Noir have arrived. Take her somewhere and keep her out of sight.
The man behind me pushed me away from the others, and CAISSA immediately began to struggle. This time, he was the one knocked back to the ground with a blow to the face. CAISSA!
Move it!
I said no! The build of Psi that I'd been trying to keep under control finally released in a telekinetic explosion that flung him away from me. Donovan whirled around in time to see me block weapons fire from one of his men.
Don't kill her!
I was so grateful I'd at least seen Ari use his shields before. She's still copying that boy all this time. The rebound was pretty severe, but at least it worked. I flicked a hand towards CAISSA and the others, equally glad he'd worked with me on fine-tuning my telekinesis. I wasn't able to finesse the cuffs and inhibitors off, but I was able to locate them, wrap my Psi around them, and snap them in half without tearing anyone's arms off in the process. Nice. And that was with the pressure of 3 other people converging on me, weapons drawn. I'd have been proud if I'd had time to feel anything but panic. I sent a whirl of Psi energy spiraling away from me in all directions, knocking the people back. Then launched a Psi burst at a 4th, who crumpled where he stood. Sorry. I caught movement from the corner of my eye as Carrie's fist connected with the nose of one of their guards. I heard the crack of bone from where I stood. And that was the moment a loud explosion from outside ripped through the air and rumbled through the walls. Finally! That had to be everyone else. Whipping my head back around, I scanned the room for Donovan, but only caught a glimpse of him as he disappeared with the woman who'd been at his side the entire time. That left the rest of their people for us to deal with. All of them seemed to focus their efforts on getting to CAISSA, who Jack and the others were doing their best to protect. He was taking cover behind some metal containers. Trying to keep my attention on everyone at the same time was going to make my head split, but I took a quick inventory of everyone's location. And teleported myself to CAISSA's side, firing a Psi burst at someone stationed on the above level. If he was at all surprised, it didn't register on his face. He grabbed my arm and yanked me down behind the container with him and Jack. Jack had a weapon he'd presumably taken from someone else, and was in the middle of a gunfight with several others. I had no idea where Carrie and June were at this point.
Morgan, update me on the situation.
Hello would be nice. Perhaps even a thank you? He leveled a glare my way.
Not the time for your jokes, Morgan.
It's a coping method. Humor me.
Hello. Thank you. Now update me on the situation.
Belly and the others are outside. Their goal is to keep Noir's people out there so we don't have to deal with them in here, just Donovan's men.
And you were to come in here and free us alone.
I allowed myself to get captured because I held up my wrist, which still had the inhibitor they'd placed on it earlier.
I knew it! I told you I didn't think that damn thing was working on her!
Oh yes, you're very smart.
Do you have any idea how dangerous and stupid this plan was?
Given the situation, I'm going to go with yes on that. Quite aware of the danger.
The court?
Safe for now. If their goal was a long-term distraction, they failed. We dealt with the situation there pretty quickly. By the time Veli arrived, things had already quieted down.
Not the best time for a conversation, you two!
He asked for an update!
Morgan, get CAISSA out of here and somewhere safer.
Understood. I grabbed CAISSA's arm and pulled him a little closer.
Wait! I can...
Just hold on. This may be a little rough.
What are...
And then we were across the room in a dark corner by the door instead of crouching next to Jack by the crates. CAISSA staggered against me and almost hit the ground with a soft groan. Sorry. I managed to keep him standing as we hid behind a partial wall. Sounds of weapon fire was still all around us. And sounds of fighting from outside. Yeah, I've been there. Apparently the first time through that is rough, but it's the only method of teleportation I know how to mimic. I tried to keep my eye on the rest of the fighting in case someone noticed which way I went. There were distortion trails or something, I remembered that much.
Where the hell did you learn to do that?
One of Endgame's nights. Don't worry, it's a long story.
Ugh.
Yes.
We didn't go far.
Just out of the thick of things for the time being. I don't know what my range is, and with my control a bit dodgy at the moment, I'm worried about trying to go too far in one jump. Keeping track of everyone and where they're shooting so we don't teleport right into the line of fire is a little trickier than expected. I glanced his way as he tried to get a grip on himself. He didn't seem to be as affected as I'd been the first time through that. Maybe because it wasn't as far a jump. I've also never done that with a passenger before. I wasn't sure how it would increase the mental load.
Are you okay?
Fine for now. We'll make another jump when you've recovered.
Where's that bastard Donovan?
Not sure. He seems to have vanished with that night of his.
We can't let him get away. Not after what he's done.
This is not the time to think about revenge, CAISSA. My goodness. Always affectionate. Look, priorities. We need the king to stay alive, and then... Agreed, we go after Donovan. Let's get you to safety first, then try to find him. It would be best if we can get him alone somewhere and...
You don't have to get me to safety like I'm defenseless.
I know you're not defenseless, CAISSA. I took his hand and pulled him closer, taking a quick glance around to make sure no one had spotted us yet. You're not defenseless, but you are necessary for a lot of people. For the survival of your family, of the court. I may not like Crimson, but even I can see that everyone is better off with you in charge of it than someone like Donovan. We can't afford to lose you. I squeezed his hand, holding his gaze for a beat. And I can't afford to lose you. So let's get somewhere we can safely figure out what to do next and where he's gone. Because I agree that we can't let him get away. We need to end this today.
All right.
Yay, he listened.
Fine. But... do you have to use that method of teleportation again?
Sorry, it's the only one I know.
Fantastic.
Just hold on. And with that, I expanded my sphere, found a place, and jumped. We ended up back in the alley outside. It was the only place I could find that didn't have people. The sounds of fighting came from all around us, though. CAISSA was leaning heavily on me, but pushed away to fall to his knees. Probably so he didn't drag me down as well.
That ability is ridiculous.
I won't disagree. I helped him back to his feet and behind a nearby trash receptacle. Sorry.
Don't be. Not your fault.
There were footsteps nearby, rapid, heavy. Then 2 shadows passed above us. I glanced up too slow to catch a glimpse of them, apparently jumping between the building roofs. There really were people fighting everywhere. I don't think we can stay here long. Are you ready to move again? An icy cold feeling gripped my stomach and rocketed through my body. Threat! Ooh, hello. I didn't have time to react. There was a flash, and a man who hadn't been there before grabbed me by the neck and hurled me against the opposite wall. CAISSA let out a shout, but before he could do anything, the man flung a hand out and... From the corner of my eye, it looked like he used a reverse shield to slam him into the side of the dumpster. Ow! He hit it with a dull thud and fell to the ground.
Don't kill him. It would be a shame if Noir lost their prize. As for her, I'd like her alive as well. She's a queen, but she's a novice. The 2 of you should be enough to take her out.
I picked myself up, throwing a shield in place in time to block the kick aimed at my head. Ugh! Every time something hit one of those shields, it felt like a hammer to my head. The main thing at this point was to keep the knight distracted. He was the one I couldn't let near CAISSA. If he teleported him away now, we'd never find him in time. I gathered my strength and threw myself at him. I was barely thinking as we fought. He's like, whoa. Everything I'd learned, everything they had drilled into me was flitting through my head, but at the foremost, my only thought was... survive. And make sure CAISSA survived with me. It was lucky that Jack had spent a few days training me in rook mimicking. I blocked a blow aimed at my head, returning it with a side kick that landed square in the man's gut. Prickle shot up my spine, and I looked back in time to see CAISSA get to his feet. There was blood trickling down the side of his head. His eyes flashed blue, and Donovan let out a scream as he clawed at his throat and went down. The bishop raised his hands, aiming at CAISSA. I teleported a split second before the knight could grab me. And in that split second, I condensed my psi to a thin layer. When I appeared in front of CAISSA, there was already a shield between us and the bishop. The impact of his psi burst reverberated through the shield and through me. My legs buckled, and it was a miracle I stayed standing. All that energy that had been bubbling under the surface finally spilled over. Somehow I was able to keep a cushion of psi around CAISSA and myself as everything else exploded outward in a shrieking whirlwind that shredded the wall behind us and everything else nearby. Everything was white, roaring, screaming. And then it all went dark and silent. Someone was cradling me close, calling my name. I struggled to open my eyes to look at the familiar presence. Did we win? I could dimly make out his face, pale and angry. I didn't think I'd been out long.
What do you think you're doing? Morgan.
I reached a shaky hand up to touch his face. That's my job, right? In chess, the rest of the pieces protect the king. His face crumpled.
It's not a game, you fool.
He choked the words out as a half groan as he bent over me. There were other voices nearby, and I tried to pick myself up, or at least sit up. I let out a soft moan. CAISSA just pulled me close.
Don't try to move. That power surge left you with another bout of psi fatigue, most likely. For now, we're just going to retreat. Don't worry. Everything is going to be fine. They're over here!
There were footsteps and shouts. How did your wounds heal so fast? CAISSA started snapping orders, and everything became a blur after that. But he didn't let go of me once during the whole cleanup ordeal. At some point I heard Celeste, and between wincing at her shouting and trying to answer her questions, I just felt immense relief she and the others seemed to be okay. Everything was going to be okay.